us live is the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation, Mohamed Hersi, who is part of that organization that co-authored that letter to the cabinet secretary. Mohamed, good to see you. You know, your concerns are very valid. The question is there a disconnect between the government and organizations such as yours?
There's no disconnect. We consult very closely with our umbrella body. Kenya Tourism Federation falls under Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And we work closely, and we do compare notes from time to time. And every week we actually have a meeting to discuss the impact of COVID and the things that we need to do. And we work very closely, so there's no disconnect. And this is the reason why we made a specific appeal that is specific to tourism. Because when you look at the memorandum that was released even by KEPSA, that touches on all sectors. But for us to go deeper, then tourism has very specific special needs, and that's why we released this particular request.
You mentioned in your statement, Mohamed, that tourism is based on perception. And of course, with this partial lockdown for Nairobi, it may deter some tourists who are coming into the country to see, is it safe? Are any protocols being observed? So even if some of your requests are heeded to by the government, are you afraid that the damage has been done, you know, in terms of how the country is being perceived out there?
Obviously, yes, there is some damage. We cannot run away from that. But keep in mind that COVID is not specific to Kenya only. COVID is global and is affecting very many countries. And as we may call it actually a moving target. So even UK, US, they keep trying different things and they keep changing. So there's nothing wrong with that. So the way we look at it is that, yes, there could be some damage, but the forward booking that we've received, a lot of them have actually opted not to cancel, including even the domestic tourists who had booked and paid for Easter. They still believe that we may be able to come up with a way out, which we have covered specifically in our request to government, so that we balance both livelihoods and businesses at the end of the day. And one of the key things is that these international tourists are allowed into Kenya using the PCR certificate. We are saying, look here, for the domestic tourists and any domestic visitor, can we then revert to the antigen test, which takes less than 15 minutes, and that's clearly almost 90-95% accurate, and that will actually help us to continue doing a bit of business so that we don't close entirely.
Yeah, Mohamed, are you optimistic you're going to get a positive answer from the government? Because, you know, your demands, again, are very valid.
Actually, I don't want to call it demands. It is request, and we work very closely with government with a lot of humility, but we also place our case very clearly. Because remember, we are very different from other sectors. We don't deal with commodities. We are dealing with emotions. We are dealing with human beings. So it's a bit different. You know, if I'm selling a commodity that is lifeless, you can carry your stuff through some roadblock, and you just need a pass. But here we are talking about human beings. We are talking about families. So we believe that, yes, we have the red zone in Nairobi and the environs. But if somebody can go through an antigen test or even a PCR test, then they should be actually allowed to leave Nairobi so that we can continue doing business, not only just tourism, but travel. And that will actually help government also to fast track, to get more people getting tested so that we know where we stand. And just before I finish saying what I'm saying, the other bit is that tourism, we've had our own protocols and guidelines in place. And a lot of the establishments had been testing their staff. And just recently, one hotel chain had tested close to 200 members of staff, and only 2 members actually turned positive. But to a company, 60, only 1 person turned positive. We keep doing this. And when you look at our positivity rate, actually we stand below 1%, which is less than the World WHO of average of 5%, let alone 22% for the country, or 16% that we are now experiencing as a country. So tourism industry is actually the place where you stand the lowest risk or rather exposure to the virus.
We're now a year into the pandemic, Mohamed, and I'm sure by now you have a clearer picture in terms of what the losses look like. How bad was it in terms of quantifying the hit to tourism over the last year?
It's been horrible. I mean, our CS, Honorable Balala, clearly stated it. We lost over 85% of our earnings. That's over 140 billion shillings. And so many people are out of employment. Even now, with all these, with the new measurements, it means that a lot of our staff will be sent back home again, which is unfortunate. So when you look at 2020 was one of the worst years ever in our tourism industry, but basically, actually, globally. But it was looking a little bit better, and we were actually very optimistic that we may salvage the peak safari season in July, August. And we're still hopeful that now that we have approached government, I hope they listen to us. And already they have allowed us in one or two cases. For instance, they've allowed the airlines that operate out of Wilson to continue flying to the Mara, to continue flying to Amboseli and all those places, which is a good thing. So it is not cast in stone and iron. As long as you explain yourself, we have a reasonable government that listens to business community, and we should be able to strike out winning without throwing, as we say, the baby with the bathwater.
You know what, Mohammed, I have some friends who own some restaurants and other establishments, and that point about giving leeway, because they've already bought stock for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Now they are up in arms saying, what are we going to do? The food is going to rot, the liquor will not be sold, and we still have to pay salaries. They are up in arms. What do you tell them? What do you tell the government?
No, I feel for them, and I feel for all the businesses. I'm in it as well. So government is also in a hard spot. I empathize with them as well. But having said that, we also need to be reasonable in the measures that we take. For instance, we can comfortably do social distancing even in restaurants. That's what we do in hotels. If we can do in hotels, then we can also do in the high street restaurants. But at the same time, I also challenge the high street restaurants also to take a lot of, what can I say, they also need to take responsibility and make sure that they follow the protocols very, very clearly. The big hotels, the 4-star hotel, 5-star hotels, especially the association, Kenya Association Hotel Keepers and Caterers Hotel, those ones have actually abided. And we've been in the forefront to say that if you don't follow the guidelines and protocols, and you're closed down, please don't come to us. So I think it's upon also all the high street restaurants do what they're supposed to do, because the protocols are easy to implement and to follow. And I don't think we have a choice when it comes to ensuring the protocols are actually followed to the letter. So back to that, this is why we've appealed to government. Please give us some leeway and allow these restaurants to operate on some, seated, and it's 50% occupancy inside the restaurant. And many restaurants in this country actually have outdoor venues where you are encouraged to take a lot of your clients. So I think that is something also government has missed out. So we need to go back to the drawing board and allow a little bit of this happening so that businesses are not closed entirely.
Absolutely, Mohammed. A lot of us, a lot of your business, a lot of people here be caught between a rock and a very hard place. Mohammed Hersi, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
He's the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation.
Yeah.